Until domestic violence became a national policy priority, abuse was dismissed as a lover's quarrel. Today's harmless jokes and undue burdens are tomorrow's civil rights agenda. A truly profound statement. It's easy to see why the UN Broadband Commission featured it in their report on cyber violence against women and girls. It really encapsulates their approach to this whole issue. In that quote, you've got domestic violence being compared to jokes, and elsewhere in the meat of the report, you've got a 15-year-old girl in Canada who was gang-raped by her classmates and photographed. The photos were distributed, and she became the subject of mockery and victim blaming by the community at large, ultimately committing suicide. In a table about cyber violence, alongside someone who got threats, had their webpage hacked, and was sent a cartoon of Super Mario raping them. I see an example of what I would call straight-up violence, and then in the second example, a bunch of stuff that I would not call violence. I'm not seeing anything that I would happily describe as cyber violence. I think that word makes the first example sound a lot less horrific than it is, and it makes the second example sound a lot more serious than it is. Though for some reason, I think that's exactly what they're trying to do.
Harassment is threats of violence, but it's also the day-to-day grind of you're a liar, you suck, you know, making all of these hate videos to attack us on a regular basis, and the mobs that come from those hate videos, etc.
A 15-year-old being gang-raped, and a 33-year-old woman being told she sucks and is a liar due to the media she produces. Tomato, tomato. This is what stands out to me. There is stuff in there about porn, there is stuff in there about video games as the root cause of mainstreaming violence. Pretty much what you expect, and that is easy to point and laugh at given some of their sources. But this idea, this concept of cyber violence as being absolutely the same as real violence, that needs to not stick. And I'm completely confident that that's what they're saying. You should go read the whole thing yourself, but here's a little snippet. Now that a cyber touch is recognized as equally as harmful as a physical touch, all citizens must prepare themselves to take the appropriate action. But it's clear they don't really believe this. They are doing this on purpose. If they believed that, they would advocate defending yourself with deadly force, wouldn't they? If it were really equivalent to real-world violence, you should be able to kill that person. And if they say, oh, but, yeah, guess what? That but is how it is not equivalent to actual violence. If you look at their list of what counts as cyber violence against women and girls, there is stuff on there that you don't want happening. They list hacking, impersonation, stalking, harassment that's actually described as something that sounds like harassment, recruitment, which is apparently setting up fake opportunities and then fucking kidnapping people, which sounds horrifying, and malicious distribution. But looking at their solutions, and particularly at their conclusion with suggestions of what needs to be done next, these big hooks, these scary things, don't really seem to be dealt with. Surely those are the things that freak you out. You're like, oh shit, this needs to end. And then it's more about changing you. Ultimately, this is also a people-centered challenge, and one that must be tackled hand in hand with broader efforts around ending violence against women and gender equality. A broad-based movement. Care needs to be taken not to stereotype or place disproportionate importance on one form of violence over another. Instead, the response to online offences against girls and women should be seen as part of the broader movement against sexual exploitation and abuse of any kind. Wait, what? No, I think we need better defence against hacking. UN, what are you doing? The challenge of keeping up with the technological pace of change will require a parallel pace of change in the social behaviours and norms of netizens. An open source approach to changing behaviours is needed with the help of an enlightened, networked society. But people already think that the bad things are bad, and I don't think the average net user even sees the horrible stuff to deal with it. Are they sure they're still talking about those 6 categories of cyber violence? Why do we need a huge attitude shift? Why not just say, report spammers if you see them, or make sure websites don't tolerate impersonation? Changing everyone's attitude enough that they would never want to do anything wrong would certainly involve someone having far too much of a hand in people's lives. And aren't sites and various service providers already working against this kind of stuff? What change do they think people need to be prepared to accept? What are they suggesting should happen? You know, besides everyone just becoming sensitive feminists. What concrete action do they think should be taken? Online diligence, monitoring and reporting against violence and related crimes is everyone's business, but responsible leadership roles must be played by telecoms and search engines. The indispensable backbone bringing the content to users have a particular role and responsibility to protect the public from violent or abusive behaviors. Political and governmental bodies need to use their licensing prerogative to ensure that only those telecoms and search engines are allowed to connect with the public that supervise content and its dissemination. Oh, the idea is that simple. This commission's suggestion to make the internet a better place for women is scare people. Ooh, cyber violence. Sensitize them. Kids in particular, if you look at the beginning of the report. So when everyone is suitably horrified of cyber vogue, as they seem to call it, we'll be happy to let the government stick its fingers a little bit more into what we're allowed to see online. As long as the censorship is to the UN's taste, of course, and it looks like they really don't like porn. If you look through the whole report, there are some other horrible ideas, but this is the one that stands out to me, and it's the one that's at the end, in the conclusion. I'm imagining something along the lines of Google removing 8chan from their results, but instead of it being a choice, it's removed by government mandate. And maybe just because people are allowed to say mean things about public figures who happen to be women. And that would be reasonable, because from gang rape to saying someone sucks, it's all cyber violence. To be honest, I'm not too concerned about their suggested solutions. As things stand now, I do not think they're realistic. Government mandates on what search engines have to cut out on such loose terms. Nah, no one would stand for that. At some point in the report, they talked about the issue of anonymity. Again, screwing with that I think would be a disaster. However, having said that, if this cyber violence idea gains steam, and we start truly equating words on the internet with actual violence, I could imagine people agreeing to or accepting some really dumb things. So, even ignoring the ridiculous thing they said about video games, the UN Broadband Commission can go cyber fuck itself. But, as usual, that's just another one of my harmful opinions. I'm currently running a Teespring campaign for this shirt. If you like the design, there's both an EU and US link in the description.